Welcome to the Jay Sizzle podcast. Today, I'm going to be doing a football podcast, doing a little recap of the games this week. I know I'm one day early, but I got a basketball podcast coming out tomorrow, so make sure you guys go ahead and check that one out too. That's why I'm a day early here. Tonight's game, just in case you guys didn't know, is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to be hosting the New York Giants, so that game should be interesting. Let's see what happens. The Chiefs have been struggling a little bit lately. The Giants just came off a huge win last week, and they've been looking a little better the last week or so. So let's see what happens this week tonight with Kansas City and the Giants. Is going to be an interesting one. Now, let me go over some of the games from this past week, some of the things I was, excited to see, and some of the disappointments I saw as well this week. So the first game I'll start with is the Thursday night game with the Packers and the Cardinals. And, it was an incredible game all the way down to the end. And, Cardinals coming in 7-0, the only undefeated team in the league. The Packers came in with only one loss, and the Packers ended up winning 24-21. The interception thrown by Kyler Murray in the red zone, or not even just the red zone, at the 2-yard line, right, as the game was coming down to the very end. The Cardinals only needed a touchdown to win, and they could have kicked the field goal to tie it, at 24, but they had enough time for two more plays with no timeouts, and then to kick the field goal, and they decided to run those two more plays, which I think was smart. And, A.J. Green just never turned around, and the ball hit his back, and the ball got picked off. So next time, A.J. Green has to turn around on a football like that and know when the ball's coming. If he knew when the ball's coming and he would have turned around, the coverage it was good, but it wasn't great. He would have had a touchdown, and they would have won the game. So the Denver Broncos got a win this week for the first time in a long time. They're on a big losing streak there. They had lost 4 in a row. They finally got a win. They beat the Washington football team, who has really struggled this year. And, I think the main reason why this team has struggled is the lack of defense. And they play good defense in this game, but Denver's offense isn't great. But Washington's lack of defense this year, their secondaries look really bad. Their D-line's still solid, obviously, but their secondaries look really bad, which was a unit that we thought was so good coming into the year. The quarterback spot, Ryan Fitzpatrick going down at the beginning of the year definitely didn't help. And then Taylor Heineke coming in and just not really, proving his worth as a number one quarterback, more looking at him as a backup. And he's our starter. So that's an issue too. The running game has been an issue. Antonio Gibson's been hurt too much, and O-line's been hurt. So there's just been a lot of issues with this team overall this year. Denver gets a win. They moved to 4-4. Teddy Bridgewater, 19 of 26, 213 yards and a touchdown, played well. Tim Patrick played well again. Tim Patrick has had a very solid year overall, and he's been kind of forgotten about in that offense. The next game was the Panthers and the Falcons, and I was able to catch a good amount of this game. Not the most exciting game, but a good win for the Panthers. As they also were on a 4-game losing streak, and they were able to get a win, so they moved to 4-4 in the season. DJ Moore played well, 4 catches for 59 yards. Sam Darnold played solid, 13-24 for 129 yards. On the other end, you had Matt Ryan. Didn't really do much. 2 picks, 20 of 27 for 146 yards, and just made a lot of bad throws in this game. And, just threw too many balls into tight windows in this game, from what I watched. Issues with Atlanta, it's still their defense, even though they only give 19 here. It's still overall their defense this season, and it's still the lack of running game that they've been able to produce this season. That's kind of been the struggles in Atlanta there. The Dolphins and the Bills. The Dolphins with the loss. They lost 26-11 to the Bills. They now moved to 1-7. And Buffalo moves to 5-2. And the Dolphins seem to have all sorts of issues, both sides of the football. Tua didn't really look great yesterday. 21-39 for 205 yards. Just so many plays and so many throws are just short because he can't get the ball down the field still. Myles Gaskin hasn't really proven anything in the running game this year and still didn't prove anything in this game. 12 carries for 36. Devontae Parker played well. 8 catches for 85. He's had an on and off season. Too inconsistent. Josh Allen played great. 29-42, 249 yards with 2 touchdowns. He also ran the ball 8 times for 55 yards and a touchdown. Cole Beasley and Diggs both played great. Cole Beasley had 10 catches for 110. I want to say Diggs had, let's see here. I know Diggs had a touchdown, a big touchdown in the game that kind of changed the game and kind of put the game out of reach for the Dolphins. Diggs had 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown, so he played solid. So that's that game. Then you had the 49ers defeat the Bears 33-22 in a game in which Justin Fields played, really well overall, ran the ball well, threw the ball well, looked really good, so that's a positive sign moving forward for the Bears. So even though the Bears got a loss in this game and they moved now on the season to 3-5, it's a positive sign moving forward, which is honestly a good thing. And Darnell Mooney also played well, a young receiver. That's another positive sign moving forward. Now with the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo 322 yards on 28 passes. Mitchell had 137 yards on the ground with a touchdown, so an incredible game for Elijah Mitchell. the best game of his career. Deebo Samuel, again, proving his worth, 6 catches for 171. And it's really cool to see Deebo Samuel playing really well this year, because he's one of the guys in the league that a lot of people sleep on. Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the Cleveland Browns 15-10 in a game that was very defensive. Both teams just brought their best defense to the table. Pittsburgh ended up winning. They got the big fumble from T.J. Watt on Jarvis Landry late in the game, and that changed everything for them. So Cleveland moves to 4-4. Pittsburgh goes to 4-3. Pittsburgh was looking pretty solid the last couple of weeks. Maybe a playoff team. Cleveland looking like their season might be over. The Eagles beat the Lions 44-6. Not really too much to say about that game. I mean, the Lions now moved to 0-8 on the season. Just a horrendous season so far for the Lions. Jalen Hurts ran the ball well. He didn't throw great, but he ran the ball really well. Dallas Goedert played well, 4 catches for 72, so that's about it to say about that game. The Titans beat the Colts 34-31 in an absolute thriller of a game. The sad news coming out of that game, though, is that Derrick Henry is now going to be out for 6 to 10 weeks. Now they're saying, at first they said OB season, now they're saying it's not the entire season, so hopefully, he's able to come back and be better than he was before, which is a crazy thing to think about because he was incredible before, but hopefully he comes back stronger than he was before. Because when he's healthy, he's obviously the best running back in the league, and there's no question to be asked about that. Now, the biggest surprise of the week was the Jets beating the Bengals 34-31. The Bengals, this is a game where they were up in the fourth quarter, and they just gave away possession. The Joe Burrow interception was just bad, and the defense looked bad at times. Really, throughout most of the game, but especially when they needed to step up, the defense looked really bad. Joe Burrow had a good overall game other than the pick. Joe Mixon didn't do anything in this game, 14 carries for 33. He did have a touchdown, but he averaged 2.4 a carry, right? So didn't do too much in this game. Jamar Chase was also really not to be seen in this game either. While he did have the touchdown, he only had 3 catches for 32. Now, on the New York Jets side of things, of course, you guys know Zach Wilson is out for a couple of weeks. Mike White was a quarterback. He threw 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 405 yards on 45 throws, so he looked solid. And Michael Carter, 15 carries for 77 and a touchdown. I think he's an underrated running back who needs to get the ball more, if you ask me. Played a good game the other day against a solid overall Bengals defense. He also had 9 catches for 95 yards in the passing game. And Jamison Crowder, 8 catches for 84 in the passing game. So the Jets got it going on both ends of the field, especially in the fourth quarter. Their defense looked really good in the fourth quarter as well, getting a lot of big stops and that interception. The Rams beat the Texans 38-22. That game, they were beating them the whole time pretty good, 38-0. And that game got a little closer comfort towards the end, but the Rams were, of course, able to hang on. Matthew Stafford, 21-32, 305 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 picks. Darrell Henderson, in this game, had 14 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown. Now, he's been really solid, honestly, in the absence, of Cam Akers. So let's see how long he can keep this up for. Cooper Kupp, another incredible game, proving why he's one of the best receivers in the league. 7 catches for 115 and a touchdown. Robert Woods, 3 catches for 35 and a touchdown. On the Texans side, you had David Mills at quarterback, right? Davis Mills at quarterback. Still a lot of things going on about Deshaun Watson. We don't know if he's going to get traded or not. We'll see what happens. Mills, 2 touchdowns on 38 throws for 300 yards and 1 interception. In the receiving end of things, Brandon Cooks had 6 catches for 83 yards. Brandon Cooks has had a very slept-on season, and we'll see maybe if a team wants to trade for him before the trade deadline coming up pretty soon here. So the Patriots were able to beat the Chargers 27-24. I wasn't able to catch too much of this game, to be honest with you guys. I know Mac Jones, though. I read about it. I watched the highlights. He looked pretty solid. He didn't throw a touchdown, but didn't throw any picks. 18-35, 218. He just played a very solid game, and he just did what he needed to do. Damian Harris, 23 carries for 80 yards. Damian Harris, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated running backs in football, and he needs to get the ball more. And when he gets the ball a lot, the Patriots always seem to win games. So feed Damian Harris the football. That's my quote for today. Nelson Aguilar played well in this game, 3 catches for 60 yards. Now on the Chargers side, Justin Herbert has been struggling the last couple of weeks. 223 yards on 35 throws, 18 completed, so the completion percentage is not great. The yards are not great on those amount of throws. 2 touchdowns and 2 picks, so just not really playing that well. And Austin Eckler, 11 carries for 64 yards, averaged 5.8 a carry with a touchdown. I don't know why he's not getting the football more. He also had 6 catches for 60. Keenan Allen had 6 catches for 77 and a touchdown. So now the Chargers moved to 4-3 on the season, and a team that looked so good 2 weeks ago all of a sudden looks like they could be beat pretty easily. So let's see what happens moving forward with the Chargers. The Jaguars and Seahawks game, not too much to really talk about there. The Seahawks blew them out of the water. Geno Smith played well. Trevor Lawrence played okay, not great. I don't know why James Robinson got the ball 4 times. It seems that every time James Robinson doesn't get the ball a good amount of times, the Jacksonville Jaguars get smoked. And when he does get the ball a good amount of times, they still lose a lot because they don't have a complete roster. They don't have a great team yet, but they make games a lot closer or they win sometimes. So James Robinson needs to get the ball more. That's another quote for the day. Get the ball to James Robinson. Geno Smith played really well, after his, pretty bad performance, a week ago against the Saints. He looked good. 20 of 24, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. DK Metcalf had 6 catches for 43 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Tyler Lockett finally got involved this week compared to last week, 12 catches for 142. In the Buccaneers and Saints game, Tom Brady had one of the worst games I think I've seen Tom Brady have in a long time. 2 interceptions, 375 yards, and I did throw for 4 touchdowns, but those 2 picks were costly, especially that pick 6 towards the end of the game, right? The running game couldn't get going for Tampa. This was one of the first weeks that Leonard Fournette was not able to get going in the running game or the passing game. Chris Godwin played really well, though, 8 catches for 140. Marshawn Lattimore did a great job against Mike Evans, only gave up 2 catches. One of them was a touchdown, but he only gave up 2 catches, so that was a good sign there. The Saints defense looked great again for the second straight week. Jameis Winston, of course, I think you guys have all heard the news that he tore his ACL. He's out for the season. Very sad news, and I hope Winston's able to come back stronger next season. Alvin Kamara, 19 carries for 61. Not great, not bad, but he had the touchdown. That was great. And he also added a little bit in the passing game with 3 catches. So, listen, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, right? I'm not worried about Tom Brady. It was one of the worst games I've seen Tom Brady play recently. Just because of the pick at the end of the game. I haven't seen Tom Brady make a mistake at the end of a game like that in a really long time. And but I expect Tom Brady to bounce back. He's still, like I said, the greatest quarterback of all time. Is still a top 2 quarterback in the league right now, or definitely at least top 3. So let's see how Tom Brady responds. He usually responds in a very positive way. And I feel bad for the team that has to play Tampa next week, which is Washington. 2 weeks. Tampa has a bye, and then they'll have Washington. And, Tom Brady's going to come up with a vengeance in that game for sure. So last night's game, the Cowboys and the Vikings. The Cowboys were able to beat the Vikings. In a game that, the Vikings should have won that game. Amari Cooper with a late touchdown in the game to win. But no reason why the Vikings shouldn't have won that game, honestly. And, I want to give a shout out to the Cowboys really quick, though. Dak Prescott should be back within the next couple of weeks, I'm hearing. So hopefully next week, maybe the week after. But the Cowboys look like a real threat in the NFL, and they can win the whole thing, to be honest with you. Now, from the Vikings' perspective, they moved to 3-4 now, and it's honestly, you look at these games, and it's like week 1 against the Bengals, they should have won that game, missed multiple field goals. Week 2 against the Cardinals, missed multiple field goals again. So at that point, they should be 2-0. Then they beat the Seahawks. Then they lost to the Browns. That was a game they deserved to lose. So that means at this point, they should be 3-1. 4-1, they beat the Vikings. 5-1, they should have won this game. The Vikings realistically should be 6-1 right now, and instead they're 3-4. They've lost way too many games because of bad coaching, not having a good kicker, and not making any moves about having a bad kicker and going to get a good kicker. They didn't do that. Still haven't done that. And like I said, a lot of the games have come down to really bad coaching for the Vikings and an inability to call the right plays. So, I think it's time for Mike Zimmer. I like him a lot. He's, I think he's, had a lot of good coaching years, but I think it's time for the Vikings to let him go and move on from him and realize that they have a really talented roster and they got everybody back on defense this year that they didn't have last year. And they played a lot of good teams this year and they've gone neck and neck with them, and then they lose games because of bad calls or missed field goals and they don't do anything to change it. So change needs to be made in Minnesota. I know Vikings fans, from what I've read on social media, I've seen on Vikings fan pages, they're not too happy and they want to see Mike Zimmer out. So let's see what happens with that. I know he's on the hot seat. So overall, it was an incredible week of NFL football. A lot of great games. I was able to catch a majority of them, and it was great. I hope everybody's fantasy team's doing good. My fantasy team's not doing great in one league at all, but in the other league, I'm doing solid. So hopefully that league I can win the whole thing or be relative. Overall though on the season, I think a couple of teams I'm going to give you guys 3 teams that have really, shocked me, and then 3 teams that are disappointed me. So this year, I'd say 3 teams that have shocked me. New Orleans being number 1. I knew how good their defense was. I didn't think it was this good. They have one of the most lethal defenses in the NFL. Like I said, it's very sad to see Winston go out, but let's see what happens at the quarterback spot from here on out. And, the Saints have really surprised me this year. I didn't think they would be that good, to be honest with you. They've really surprised me all year. They've been one of the surprising teams. Another one of the surprising teams this year for me has been the Dallas Cowboys, right? I did not expect the Dallas Cowboys to be this good, to be honest with you. I don't think anybody did. I expected them to be good, but not to be this good. 6-1, I don't think anybody saw them going 6-1 through 7 games. I don't think anybody, as great as a quarterback as Dak Prescott is coming off that injury, I don't think anybody saw him playing this well coming off an injury. He's playing arguably one of the best seasons of his career coming off that kind of injury. I'm really happy to see Dak Prescott playing that well. It's a good sign for sure. So Dallas is another team I'm very surprised at. Ezekiel Elliott started the season slow, but he's really picked up his pace ever since, and he's, again, looking like one of the best running backs in football. The last team I've been very surprised about this year is the New England Patriots. 4-4 in the season. Mac Jones looks pretty solid overall. He's just a little inconsistent, but that's rookie, typical rookie play. He's just going to be a little inconsistent here and there. But defensively, they look great. Damian Harris has looked great. The receivers have looked pretty solid. Tight end spots look solid. They have a lot of depth there. And, of course, Bill Belichick's still one of the best coaches in football, if not the best coach in football still. So, Patriots have really surprised me this year. Now, in terms of teams that have disappointed me this year, the Indianapolis Colts have really disappointed me this year, moving to 3-5 now. I expected them to win this week against Tennessee. They didn't. Tennessee moved to 6-2, but the Colts moved to 3-5. So, the Colts have really disappointed me, to be honest with you. Jonathan Taylor's had an incredible season. But Carson Wentz, I don't know. I think Carson Wentz is not really the answer, and I think you'll see the Colts move on from him after this year, if you're asking me. I know the numbers look good, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks, but the quarterback rating isn't good. And you also got to kind of think that in big-time moments, Carson Wentz has not shown up for this team, and they've had a lot of tight games where Carson Wentz has thrown picks or fumbled the ball or made a lot of bad throws that he shouldn't have made, and forced a lot of throws into situations he didn't need to force them into. So that's the number one team that is disappointing me this season. The other team that's disappointing me is Cleveland, right, at 4-4. I know Cleveland's had a lot of injuries this year, but still, even when they're healthy, they don't seem to really be the same kind of team they were last year. Myles Garrett seems to be the only... And Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward seem to be the only reliable pieces on that defense. John Johnson is not the same player he used to be. There's just too many guys on that defense with too much inconsistency, in my opinion. Secondary looks weak most of the time. The linebacker spot's really weak. The only time they get any sort of pass rush or opposing QB presence is when Myles Garrett gets through the line, which he does a lot. But it's nice to have someone else on the other side or someone else helping out Myles Garrett to take a little pressure off his shoulders and tell him, hey, you don't have to do everything. They don't have that. So the offenses look shaky at times too. Baker Mayfield's had a solid season. Odell Beckham Jr., I don't know what's going on there. I really don't even know what's going on there. I couldn't even tell you because I don't know. And I don't think anybody can really explain that one. Nick Chubb, I know he's missed a couple games, but when he's been healthy, he's been incredible. Second in yards this year in the league. It's just, it's just crazy. I didn't expect the Browns to be 4-4 at this point, even with the injuries. Like I said, even in the games when they were healthy, they still haven't looked great. They haven't looked like the same team as last year. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know what it is, but I think mainly it's defense. I've heard a lot of people say coaching. That's why I brought that up. But I think it's the defense. The defensive end of the field has looked really miserable for the Browns all year, to be honest with you. And I don't want people coming at me and telling me, they gave up 15 points against the Steelers. They gave up 15 points against the Steelers offense that has no offensive line. A rookie running back and Najee Harris, who I love. He's great. Incredible player. He's going to be great for a long time. Going to be a superstar. But he's a rookie. And then also they have Juju Smith is down. He's not playing. James Washington has been hurt on and off. So, yeah, Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool are incredible receivers and they're future superstars in this league. Deontay Johnson's kind of sneaking up to that status already. But it's like, this is an offense that's not, hasn't in Pittsburgh that hasn't really produced all year. They've been more of a defensive team. And so to brag about only giving up 15 points to them is really not doing that much because when you look at other offenses that Cleveland's played this year, powerful offenses, they've given up so many points. So, and the last team I would say that I've been disappointed with this season, probably the 49ers, to be honest with you. The 49ers, even in a win last week against Chicago, they did look good. They're 3-4. And I understand Raheem Mostert went out for the season, but Elijah Mitchell has really stepped up and honestly played just as good as Raheem Mostert could have played. And Debo's looked great. Brandon Ayuk hasn't really done much at all this entire season. That's been a big disappointment in terms of a player. But no, I've just been really disappointed in the 49ers. Defensive end of the field has not looked as good. The secondary looks really weak at times. The pass rush just looks weak. Nick Bosa doesn't look like he's the same player he was. I know it's just 1 year coming back from that injury, so I'll give him another year next year to hopefully prove himself again. But Fred Warner still looks like he's arguably the best linebacker in football. But outside of that, there's just too many issues on the defensive end with this team, especially the secondary. Offensively, there's too many issues. I don't know how there's so many issues. I don't know if it's the quarterback spot. I think Trey Lance is going to end up being a great quarterback. It's just going to take time. I don't know if it's the quarterback spot or the lack of production at the receiver spot past Deebo Samuel. George Kittle hasn't looked great this year either. Too many injuries, and when he's healthy, he's not producing at the same level as he used to. Kind of like last year. Even when he was healthy last year, he didn't produce at the same level. So starts to get you to wonder if, George Kittle is still a great player or not, And sadly, we have to wonder that. So that's going to wrap it up for today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and like these videos. Go ahead and follow the Instagram. The website has NBA rankings up. NBA power rankings should be up on the website. Let me know if there's any issues with those. I'm going to re-upload those power rankings probably tomorrow again for next week. So if you look at them today, you might see like a couple of you might only see like top 5 and the rest might be gone, but that's only because I'm going to re-upload them for next week, tomorrow. And I'm going to try, like I said, originally I said every Thursday, but I'm going to try to do every Tuesday. I'll just re-upload them tomorrow because a lot of changes happened in the last 5 or 6 days since I put them up. So we'll see what happens. NFL top 100 players will be coming soon too. Make sure you go ahead and check that out when that comes. I have a list on my phone of the players that are in the top 100. I just have to organize it into 100. And that will come out on the website as well. NBA Top 100 is still on the website if you haven't checked that out. So go ahead and check that out. A lot of new things coming soon for this website or for this podcast. I hope we can get merch coming pretty soon. I'm thinking about doing that, thinking about doing player merch and things like that. So just have to, it's going to take a while to do those kind of things, because I just have to be able to find, the right people to help me make the merch and find the right type of merch to create and make sure that enough of you will buy the merch, which I think we'll have. And I think enough of you will buy the merch. But I just have to make sure that's the case. So again, like I said, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast and have a good one.